To compensate the delay and subsequent leak of true colors, Amphibia fans were treated with a special surprise after the official premiere of the season finale this past weekend. A brand new opening sequence for Season 3. While we're hard at work on our breakdown for the season finale, with how much they packed into it, let's run through this new opening for details you may have missed or may not have thought much about otherwise. Potential spoilers for Season 3 ahead. Immortalizing the final moments of true colors into the show's introduction, the partially recharged Calamity box plummets to the ground after falling out of the hands of a slain Marcy Wu, transporting Anne and the Planter family to Los Angeles, California. Anne is finally back home on Earth, and unlike the original opening where Anne finds herself in the wilderness, the group is now in the middle of the hustle and bustle of a big city. Something you may immediately detect is that the instruments of the theme song have also been updated to reflect the show's new setting on Earth. While the addition of the electric guitar is the most obvious, there's plenty of chiptune to reflect the abundance of technology that human beings rely on in Anne's world. Birds soar past construction workers, taking us to the Boonchoi household in the middle of a neighborhood that's brimming with life. Aside from the civilian struggling to walk her dog, there are so many details around Anne's house that simply make her family feel like real people. There's the basketball hoop above their garage and a frisbee stuck on the roof, which reinforces that Anne is the athletic type. I imagine Anne's parents are partial to gardening, as there's plenty of planted pots and flowers, alongside a giant orange tree looming behind the house. Anne opens her door donning a new outfit, a pink baseball tee with an illustration of a flame on her shirt, the significance of which may be properly explained in an episode. Or it could just serve as an Easter egg from someone on the crew. I'm curious though, is this like a summer camp thing, a scout thing, or a potential nod at Anne's explosive new powers? Though I assume the latter of which would be blue. She's also finally rocking a full pair of shoes once more, this time gray and purple high tops, with a yellow sweater wrapped around her waist, wearing short blue jeans underneath. Also, probably the most noticeable detail of this new attire, Anne no longer has leaves or branches in her hair. After her transformation in true colors elongated the leaves and branches out of her head, I was left wondering if this was going to be clarified any further, and if this appearance of nature beauty in her hair is the result of Anne's exposure to the blue stone on the Calamity box more than anything else. Also, this may or may not be an Easter egg, but Anne's home also has the address of 301, which could just be a nod at the first episode of the season in production. 301 assumably being its production code. Moving on though, the planters sprint past Anne and into the Boonchoi home, where Sprig leaps out the kitchen freezer, holding a mint chocolate chip ice cream cone like his telescope before falling flat on his face, startling Anne's father while amusing her mother, and pulling Hop Hop's attention away from Anne's phone. That in itself is a nice callback to episodes like Taking Charge, Hop Hop now taking an open interest in the smartphone now that he has the wonders of 5G. But I also gotta point out how nice it is for Anne's parents to evidently have made the planters breakfast, as we can spot a plate of bacon, eggs, and rice lying on the table, next to a cup of coffee. Anne's two families are bonding. Polly, showing off her new leggies, jumps onto the OG Domino, who's indulging in a catnap before swiping furiously at Polly for being awakened out of his slumber, and laughs at this sight before having Sprig bounce into her head once more, the two taking off and jumping onto beach paraphernalia, leaving a kid and woman floored at the sight of an anthropomorphic frog. This in itself tells us that the planters won't try to go incognito or anything on Earth. Hopefully we're not gonna indulge in anything like permanent human disguises, aside from one scenario that's present in this theme song. They're simply going to be loud and proud during their time on Earth, which will likely lead to unforeseen consequences. As the theme song picks up in speed, Anne sprints out of the alleyway that appeared in Reunion. Notice Sasha's graffiti tag, holding Sprig and Polly, attempting to evade one of Andrias' robots, this time a newer, slimmer model, contrasting from the bulky Toad modes seen in both Frobo and the Army in true colors. I assume the portion of Season 3 that's spent on Earth will play around a little bit with the Monster of the Week format, since we now know that the Calamity box can create individual portals. It's likely that King Andrias will be sending different robots and monsters to LA every week to crush or capture Anne and the planters. And I can only imagine the possibilities from there on out. I can already see an episode unfold where Anne's parents get abducted, giving her a reason to return to Amphibia as soon as possible. I seriously can't wait to see where this final season will take us. As the screen flashes to white, we have a smooth transition to a museum, judging by the abundance of dinosaurs. Assumably after hours, as we see a night guard keep watch, while Sprig and Polly pull a trench coat and a hat move, and Hop Hop wears a pair of novelty glasses. The planters attempting to move undetected, disguised in a museum of all places, has me thinking that they're not only trying to mask their identities because they're talking frogs, but because they're here to steal something. Let's retrace our steps real quick. Someone had to bring the Calamity box to Earth, likely the pink frog who betrayed Andrias, who I suspect to be the Dr. P who wrote the book of lore that Marcy found. I'd wager that the box may not have been the only thing they left behind. And if one of these things ended up in a thrift shop, who's to say those other belongings wouldn't have been recovered and ended up in a place like, say, a museum? Yeah, there's something important here that'll help their efforts in either going back to Amphibia, rebuilding Frobo, or aiding Anne with mastering her new power. For all we know, it could be the missing disc that was needed back in the episode Fort in the Road. Whatever it is, I'm sure it'll be marked with the classic Amphibia emblem that we've become familiar with over the course of the series and was present on the chest that the Calamity box was found on. Next up, Anne and the planters are on the lam, speeding down the street atop of a scooter, as they're surrounded by cop cars and helicopters, and being chased down by what appears to be a government truck poorly disguised as an ice cream truck. One agent is posed up to be speaking to his mouthpiece. Attached is a notable gold rose pin, while the other agent screams scientist-type character, judging by their blonde blown-back hair and round opaque glasses. I'm sure the government would want to investigate the sudden appearance of 3 talking frogs and a missing girl, which couldn't have been avoided due to their abrupt, very public arrival at the end of True Colors. For all we know, the portal from the Calamity box could have sent out an energy signature, which could somehow benefit their efforts in returning home. Moving along, Andrias' invasion upon Earth is set to go fully in motion at some point during this season, as a crowd of civilians have their weekend food market. This symbol, by the way, is the Watai of Los Angeles. The piece interrupted by a swarm of robotic flies, followed by what I imagine to be a Monster of the Week robot, shooting numerous smaller robots out of its gigantic shoulder pads while firing up its piercing red cannons. Keep in mind, this may be on Earth or may be a threat in Amphibia itself, but either way, this truly feels like Amphibia going all out and flexing its various influences to the highest degree. And I'm eating it all up. Next up, we have Sasha and Grime, equipped with their now signature weapons, the Red Heron Blade and Barrel's Warhammer. And they are united with the various inhabitants of Wartwood, and they're all ready to kick some robot ass. I mean, look at my boy Chuck. This man is strapped and itching for some bloodshed, growing tulips by day, slaying enemies by night. This feels like the culmination of Sasha's arc. After a significant portion of the Toad army was throttled in True Colors, I imagine they currently remain imprisoned within Newtopia's dungeon. And I also imagine there are plenty of Newts who won't be down with Andrias' True Colors, such as Priscilla and ideally General Yunnan, though the latter may be a gradual change due to her loyalty to Newtopia. But at the same time, does that loyalty to Newtopia as a nation overrule Andrias' leadership? Either way, there are going to be Newts who'll have zero qualms betraying Andrias. Couple this with the revelation in Reunion that there were numerous villages of frogs starting to rebel due to Hop Hop inspiring the masses, and suddenly you have frogs, Newts, and Toads all on the same page. Sasha Waybright will be the one to take control and bring all amphibians together for the first time in who knows how long, leading an army straight into Andrias' castle to save the multiverse. Complementing the frogs is a panning shot of the new Earth characters together. Going from right to left, we have Anne's parents, her mother wearing Crocs for some reason, followed by a blue-haired adult in a lab coat with a neutral expression on their face. They exude shy character energy, so I won't be surprised if they're a fan favorite. Considering their identification badge is illustrated differently from the next characters, I'm gonna tie this into my museum theory and assume they could be involved with another location, like a laboratory where a different item from Dr. P resides. Next up, we clearly have the museum guide, due to her dinosaur pattern shirt and UFO earring. Considering she's front and center, I imagine she's going to be a huge ally within the Earth storyline. At the very least, she's going to aid them in recovering whatever they need to get from the museum. After her, we have 2 cyberpunky teenagers with a robot panda, both of these teenagers covered in dirt and scratches. It's clear these two work with technology, so their role is more than likely going to be huge MVPs in the revival of Frobo. We have an elderly man who strikes a blatant resemblance to Hop Hop, whom I don't have much to say on. Maybe he's a grandfather to one of these techie teens, but I'm not sure. And to round out this cast, we have the government agents in their ice cream truck in the back. And their inclusion in this rather trusting shot has me hoping that they're only the antagonists for an episode or two before deciding to assist Anne and the Planters, which would be in their best interest, considering an invasion is underway. This brings us to the most chilling section of this intro. King Andrias wields a sword in a menacing fashion before we pan up to Marcy in what appears to be a rejuvenation tank, as the 13 eyes of the night awaken behind her. The implications of this are insane. While it assures the audience that Marcy is alive in some capacity, we're also being informed that her body will likely become a vessel. Assuming the knight is in need of a humanoid body, Marcy may tragically be ripe for the taking. But we'll speculate on this further at a later point. Rounding out this new opening, in what feels like a sequence straight out of Sonic the Hedgehog, flying robots shoot missiles straight at the Planters. The immediate sense of danger causing Anne, in her amphibian attire, to transform into her supercharged state, redirecting two of the missiles and halting the third with sheer force, before throwing it right back at the robot. Assuming this is based off an actual scene in the upcoming season, I wonder if this is shortly after Anne and the Planters arrive on Earth, before Anne returns to the home of her parents, because of Anne's attire. If so, I wonder if Anne's super transformation will have a decent amount of screen time while they're on Earth, as she taps into it pretty quickly here. If they're frequently in danger, how long before she has a good grip on this form? And then descends onto the ground and reverts back to normal, as the background surrounds her with the ever-expansive cast of the show, with a noticeable detail of Sasha and Grime being placed close to the citizens of Wartwood, alluding to how they'll grow closer with each other throughout the season, as now, the two groups only have each other. And with that, the new introduction is brought to a close. Comment down below your thoughts. What do you think? What theories do you have for this upcoming third season of Amphibia? Let us know, and you can always tweet your thoughts over at Roundtable Vids, and you can find me over at Fox, and we're also on Instagram. If you enjoyed this video, please throw it a like and subscribe to the Roundtable for more great cartoon content. Thank you for watching, and I hope you have an awesome day. See ya!